Welcome to Finding Zen with Michael Pottern, where everyday moments become sacred. I'm your host, Michael Pottern. Together, we explore how presence shows up in people's lives and the quiet gifts they reveal themselves to be when we truly pay attention. So take a breath, settle in, and let's hear what presence has to say.
Hello, everybody. This is Sarko, and I'm about to do a podcast interview with my friend Michael. We are going to be talking about some sensitive topics that are very important. And if you're interested, please listen in, join us for this journey. I need it to be noted that I am speaking of my own accord. I am not here representing my community, my department, policing in general. These are my ideas that I'm going to get to explore with my friend Michael, so I hope you join in.
Welcome, everybody, to Finding Zen with Michael Pottern. I'm here today with my dear friend Sarko. We're going to get into some really lovely things, but let's just arrive here together, take a breath, settle in, and see what presence has to say. So, Sarko.
Hi, Michael.
Let's just kind of, start with an overview of you.
Wonderful. And just like to start off by saying thank you. Thank you for the interest in inviting me in to have this conversation with you. So starting with education, I went to a little school in Boston called Newman School. I go back that far because that's where some really special teachers saw and heard me and suggested I explore certain big thinkers and certain topics, two of which that stand out in my memory are Carl Jung and his writings and Buddhism. So I was exposed to these things in high school. By some very special teachers, in particular, Mr. Cody. That school led to Northeastern University, which in essence is right up the street because Boston's so small. And I started studying psychology there, but without a change of major because I wasn't getting the information I was looking for. I started taking classes in the philosophy religion department. And I took so many classes in philosophy and religion, the major kind of switched. So I ended up with a BS in that with this gigantic minor in psychology. It's one lab shy of completing all the other coursework for psychology as well. So that's kind of where I got to, with traditional studies in religious thinking, philosophy, and heavily behavioral psychology before I became a police officer in my 30s. So that's a jump from 20s to 30s.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's my undergraduate studies. So I came in with an education background that's not typical for a police officer. In my 30s, as a patrol officer, I started taking master's level courses in counseling psychology at Salem State University. 1-2 courses at a time, I finished my master's, which allowed me to become a therapist. Mm-hmm. So that leads to where I'm at right now. I'm at the rank of lieutenant in policing, concurrently assigned to public health and public safety. So I have police teams in both. And I'm a therapist. So I see people mainly over Zoom, mainly adults, for counseling psychology, counseling therapy.
Wow. That's definitely, I think, juxtaposition in that way of authority and control on, the police officer side, and then kind of more healing and kindness in the way of being supportive as a therapist, especially with trauma. And I love that. I think, where we're going to go today is exploring where those two paths really have an overlap and where we even see some of the things you're doing as being the foundation, somewhat the blueprint for maybe what's ahead for first responders. And, so let's start kind of there. Obviously, you have this, what I think you've said to me before, helper's edge, because you have that therapeutic background with your policing.
Mm-hmm.
Can you kind of speak to how that shows up?
I really like the way you put that. So, one thing that I believe, and this isn't an idea from me, it comes from my mentors, it comes from the big thinkers I was blessed to be able to study, is the fact that there is a logical message in what might seem illogical and chaotic presentation. Now, I bring that into police work because police work allowed me access to people in acute emergency real time, right? And if that isn't an example of chaos, I don't know what is, right? But if you're able to slow down once everything is made safe and look at the situation and look at the information the police departments have on a particular person or a family, you can start seeing what is needed, what is wanted, what is available beyond language in those situations. And there's a choice point there. The choice point is, are we going to ignore that, or are we going to work to provide that to the person or the family so that we can work to prevent death and prevent arrest? That moved me. That type of thinking and belief system moved me as a patrol officer, because in my community, what we're taught is when we come in to do our shift, we are to review the police logs and read the police reports to be caught up with the narrative of the town. Mm-hmm. And as I would do that, I would see people call and freely give their most intimate information to a dispatch call taker who types them right into the computer system. Okay. So we know this person is struggling with whatever named disorder. We know this family has issues because a history gets created non-coercively, freely given to the police departments. And traditional policing wasn't doing anything with that information. To me, not only is that a missed opportunity, but it's a moral failing, right? If you know and you're a part of the system, you're on the hook to help. I'll debate this concept with anybody. And I think that it is imperative for the department that collects that information, knows that information, to send officers back. That's the closing of the loop.
I get that.
Right? Now, might sound radical. We already do this with detectives. Detectives circle back because they have collected information on a person who's breaking the law so that they can continue collecting information to make a rock solid case for court. Right? So, what if guardians who have access to the same data set looked at it and said, what does this person need to not die and not get arrested? Why don't we circle back, investigate, see if we can connect with a person on a heart level? So the task becomes creating rapport, building trust, right?
Yeah.
So the cop finds the person, eye-to-eye contact, close proximity within that energetic zone that we can talk about later, right? That we radiate out of our heart. Get the person to trust them and then connect them to the appropriately trained people in the public health department, right? We started doing this 10 years ago. And I like to point this out. I think we're at the point where we are coming out of criminalizing mental health issues, which is very appropriate, and moving mental health issues into public health, out of the criminal justice system and into the public health system.
I love two things that you shared. One is the presence that goes into establishing that context and getting more information using what's available in real time instead of either both projecting, oh, this person is this way. You're really rounding out by accessing some of that information that is available and has just been sitting there.
I believe this type of police work offers a redemptive opportunity, right? And I really like the way you mentioned the system, right? I, I, I'd like for the audience to not personalize some of the harder things that we say in this conversation. It's about the system, right? And the system is set up to do what it does exactly the way it was intended many, 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 many years ago, right? And waking up to the fact that there is injustice and there is violence codified in law, allowing situations on the street to play out certain ways is not a personal attack against any particular person, right? It's a calling in so that we can make things better. And I also want to point out something that was triggered in me based on what you said is this guardianship model in my community known as CLEAR, Community and Law Enforcement Assisted Recovery. It's the police to public health pipeline, right? The police to prison pipeline, right? We need to fix that. We need to have it become the police to public health pipeline, right? That's forward-facing work into the community, right? But there is rear-facing work that we have to do too. Because as we're extending a correct helping hand to community members, we need to extend the correct helping hand to our first responders as well. We are also dehumanized by a very intense, aggressive system that has violence codified in law. The system makes for unsafe environments for humans to work in. And in that working is the depletion from the soul. And what can take a stand against that? Leaders who say, my people in my community and my organization are more important than that.
So I'm curious, where do you see all this going? Obviously, there's a call to action of other officers, not only in your own community, but just at large to start to engage with this type of thinking. And then, we're also in a mental health crisis where, people are not living their healthiest lives in this line of work. And both between the I think critical incidents and the moral injury and everything that goes along with the role. What would the vision look like for a more guardian centric world, and also how can other police officers start to lean into this?
Yeah, there's two things that come to mind, and I hope I can keep both thoughts clear and visit them in my response to your wonderfully placed question. So it's really interesting to me that we have experts. This isn't just you and I calling it a mental health emergency to be sensational or to drum up support. Other people with the proper credentials, access to the statistical information, have said we are in a mental health emergency, a crisis across civilian groups, across first responder groups, in the military. Like, we can revisit those numbers, but they're out there. We know, right? People are suffering depression, anxiety, all kinds of issues. Suicide is up through the roof, and it increases exponentially with stressful, heavy work like police work, first responder, and military. So if that's the case, you got to ask, what do we need to do? What is missing to help with that? Australia, the whole country, has said there's enough of an evidence base. We are allowing our psychiatrists to prescribe MDMA, which got delayed in the States, by 3-4 years. They want another phase 3 clinical
Mm-hmm.
trial. Why? Why is Australia saying yes and we're saying no? Doesn't make any sense.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go buy some whiskey at the local liquor market and drink and talk about it.
Yeah.
None of it makes sense. So I guess where I'm going with this is, how come all of the helpful substances from Mother Earth that can help keep us well are prohibited? And all of the harmful ones that can lead to conditions that will require treatment from pharma readily accessible?
Well, with this podcast being called Finding Zen, I know that you were able to secure a religious exemption to start to explore these because obviously the value that you can receive personally, as well as start to understand the value that this could also bring to your clients. Could you speak a little bit to that? Because I really do want this podcast and these conversations to actually serve as a tool for those who know something needs to change, but they just don't know what that is. So let's just start with other people who are in the system. What did that process of religious exemption look like? And, where would somebody even start if they are currently serving as an officer or a first responder? What are the pathways for them to help themselves?
Yeah, thank you for that. This is going to allow me to share a deeply meaningful story with you. And I want to share with you and your audience that if it comes off as if there was like 100% conscious plan connected to this, there wasn't. And I only say that because it's overwhelming to see and feel the mystery at play. And I'll try to make my point. And I so appreciate you asking my educational background because that came into play.
Mm-hmm.
So I am a police officer at the rank of lieutenant in a department in Massachusetts. And I became a police officer in my 30s. So I had a whole other life. And I had educational background very different than other police officers. I want to share a story about my education background. The audience knows now I study philosophy and religion, and it inadvertently turned into my major because I just kept taking classes because it was giving me what I was looking for. Meaning of life questions. Why are we here? What happens after we die, right? The human condition. Why do we suffer? All of that stuff. And I remember at Northeastern University, the head of the department, Professor Meyer, he's such an interesting guy. He wore jeans and always looked, he was like all scruffed out. He reminded me, like, I thought to myself, like, this must have been like what Socrates was like, right? He called me to a meeting and he sat me down, and we were on campus. We were not inside the office space. We were outside. I just remember sitting down next to him. It was this circular space. And Northeastern's campus is beautiful, in my opinion. And he said, Sarko, you keep taking all these classes. Have you thought of what you're going to do with a degree in religion and philosophy from Northeastern University? Like, where are you going with this? Like, it's the feeling I got was a little bit of concern for your future.
Yeah,
right.
Just checking in here.
Right.
Where
Options.
are we going?
And I said to him, I said, I'm not worried about it. I'm not worried about it because my mom taught me to study what I love and keep studying it forever. Mm. So I wasn't studying it to secure a job. I was studying it because it was filling my heart. It was giving me what I was looking for. It was filling my soul, right? And I believe that it gave me a protective factor from all these depleting environments that people find themselves working in. A depleting environment with known health risks is policing, right? So jump forward in my 30s. I become this cop in this community that thinks differently. Now, I don't hide it. I don't mask it because I'm not worried about being an outlier. I'm too old. I'm 30. I don't care if you like me or not. Yeah. I'm here to do what I'm called to do in the way that I think it should be done, right? So I think the chief that hired me noticed that, right? And what he did was he started taking me with him to the International Association of Chiefs of Police conference.
Mm-hmm.
This started 10 years ago. I think I've gone to every one of the conferences. It's the hugest conference on earth related to police professionals. I mean, every country, almost every country is represented. Their police executives are all there. I bring this up because it was there that I met Rick Doblin. Okay? Again, no plan here.
And Rick Doblin is the founder of MAPS.
Founder of the Multidisciplinary Association of Psychedelic Studies. He is the person who's credited with the full-bore attempt at medicalizing MDMA. Street name ecstasy. Once again, Schedule 1 compound. Mm-hmm. Okay? Real quick, I need to say something about that. We are in a medication connected overdose epidemic emergency. We know a lot of people use street ecstasy, but we're not in a MDMA or ecstasy connected overdose emergency. Mm-hmm. How interesting. Mm-hmm. And the chemical that we have that emergency with, fentanyl, is actually in a different category because it is a medicine. Mm-hmm. MDMA is on Schedule 1. Okay, so he was at this conference presenting the results of phase 2 clinical trials on how effective this Schedule 1 compound is when paired with psychotherapy in treating one of the most unshakable mental health conditions, treatment-resistant severe PTSD. And I was there. So I see this, and my nervous system's activated. I'm shaking. I go introduce myself to him. He asks a couple of questions, and when he finds out that I'm a police officer and a therapist, he gives me his card and says, let's connect. And he gets me into the MAPS MDMA-assisted psychotherapy training program, which isn't being currently taught right now in the States. I was in one of the first cohorts. Mm-hmm. This is getting to the point. Not only are they able to do that, but I get a phone call from them and they ask if I am interested in experiencing pharmaceutical grade MDMA. I said, yeah, I am. Yeah. But I have to get permissions because of the type of work I do. Again, no plan, right? I go back to my chief. I say, I met this guy. He got me into a training. Now they're telling me that I can get into a federally sanctioned research protocol, allowing me access to pharmaceutical grade MDMA. And I want to do it, right? This chief watching me, hiring me, hearing me, right? He doesn't seem surprised that I'm saying this to him. And he says, if it's federally sanctioned, I'm fine with that. Mm-hmm. We just got to let the town manager know, get his blessing. And we were able to get that blessing too. It wasn't too hard because it was federally sanctioned. Okay. Now, I take MDMA. I have a full-blown mystical experience. I can explain that so that your audience can hear it and know what I'm talking about here. And it can be done in a few sentences. When the medication hit, I could feel the energy of love in the environment. Mm. Okay? When love becomes palpable to your sentences, to me, that's numinous. Mm-hmm. That's mystical, right? And then I had access to gratitude, okay? You know how you hear, well, if you can get yourself to stop for a minute, take a deep breath, notice something beautiful and worthy of gratitude, and extend gratitude to it, it can change your whole system, right? Many people nod and say, yeah, that practice makes sense. It's a beautiful practice. This was a big enough gratitude to hold everything that is in me about me, light and dark, mm-hmm. joy and sorrow. Dare to say good and evil. Mm-hmm. doesn't make sense. Some things aren't supposed to make sense. They're paradoxes.
You have permission to stop trying for a second. Seriously, nothing to fix, nothing to optimize. That's the idea behind the Denver Zen Den. Light, sound, and vibration technologies help your nervous system downshift. And if Denver isn't on your map, the same technology can live with you at home or at work. All right, let's rejoin the interview with Sarko.
And if you can hold the tension of that paradox, you have access to more of who you are in this whole sense. There's a deep peace connected to that. That's what I experienced on MDMA.
Whew. That gave me goosebumps, feeling how that can permeate and alchemize, because that's what I think we need to cultivate more of, is truly, one, being in touch with our intuition and also our needs, and speaking those. And the more that we can cultivate community around us that wants to see our highest and best self and our dreams come true, that's where we can really truly operate as a community. And it's not like, oh, somebody's doing better or worse. It's just we're all functioning together. And I love that you're not only looking to do that for your community of officers, but also for the public, so that they can feel more integrated and held by these guardians that I continue to get excited to see permeate more departments, and also more support from the public, because it's not just a police department thing, it's a public policy thing, because it does take resources to do that. Circling back with the people that you've had contact with as an officer to close that loop does take extra time.
That's right.
But is the value worth it? I mean, I think there's no question, because otherwise you're just going back and putting Band-Aid after Band-Aid on, and there's no trust there between either party. And so, of course, there's not going to be a pathway forward. So I love that numinous love. I mean, that's such a beautiful term, because that's religious. It's also personal. It has a quality that I think most people are seeking in life. They just don't know how to define that.
Yeah, you brought up so many things I would like to comment on. Absolutely. And just opening up to that mystery, or being able to do what you're called to do in a non-competitive kind of way, right? Lets you kind of fall into your destiny without comparison, right? Without it being a race. Let me jump to a statement I wanted to plug in after I shared about what I experienced on MDMA. I had a numinous mystical experience on this compound that we already said doesn't have an overdose emergency connected to it, but we have medical molecules that are causing a major emergency, right? 100,000 dead a year, 100,000 plus, give or take 10,000 every year. It's so large, you almost shut down, right? Because if you hold that tension, my God, could you imagine? I mean, that could be you or I's family member. But MDMA on Schedule 1, MDMA access being slowed down, MDMA already being prescribable in Australia. I heard a researcher on stage at a psychedelic symposium say something around 200, 300,000 tabs of street MDMA ecstasy are done in the UK every weekend. Okay. That's a lot of ecstasy being used. I don't hear about overdose deaths connected to that. Right now, I'm not advocating for that. Right, that's not the point I'm trying to drive home with that statement. Right, I'm trying to indicate the problem we should all have with Schedule 1, the questioning that needs to begin, and I believe it has, and wondering about why, and working to imagine a new future connected to that schedule. You know. And here's the point I want to make. If MDMA is so helpful for treatment-resistant severe PTSD, it can push it into sustained remission for a year, sustained remission for up to a year. Imagine. And we are in an epidemic.
Mm-hmm.
How immoral to slow down rather than speed up. How unjust to keep barriers up instead of taking barriers down. Who are we truly protecting by doing that? And who are we allowing to die?
Mm-hmm.
We're allowing my brothers and sisters, my family members, my community members, my co-workers to die. And they don't need to by doing that.
Yeah, let that sit in.
Yeah, let's let that set in. We need to link up and demand access.
Well, I think, as G.I. Joe says, knowledge is half the battle. And I think, often people have like this awareness that they need something. I know at the Zen Den, we have people coming in saying, I know I need some type of support. I'm not myself anymore. I don't know myself anymore. I'm acting out in ways. And just to have that nervous system reprieve can be amazing. But also, I think people don't realize that, if you are able to fly here to Colorado, obviously Colorado is on the forefront of this psychedelic renaissance. So, these are tools that are still accessible, even though this might not be in your jurisdiction. You can still go to these places and then still get the support back home. And so you can create your own support network. And I very much honor people who are willing to kind of, put their hand up, especially when they're in a position of trust and power. And also there is respect, I think for somebody who's willing to say my mental health as a police officer matters, because also the mental health epidemic, I think, especially in the veterans, military, first responder field, is that's not okay to ask for help. It's not okay to not be perfectly, I'm ready to go and do all the things. And so even just to say, I need help, puts out such an opportunity to change the narrative for other people to say, I'm dealing with something too. Yeah. And that's really where I think, that linking the arms is something that's changed my life, because I have really cultivated the people in my life that want to do that for me. It's not just oh, well, is he going to, look out for my business, or is he going to, do these things that I think in my past life, in these different versions that I've gone through over the years, that was how things operated, was what's the value for me here?
Well, I want to that inspired me to thank Colorado, right? Colorado has decriminalized nature, has allowed access to adults, to natural compounds that we already said, all of which, most of which, happen to be on Schedule 1 for some reason, right? That in our conversation, and people, if they get curious, can look to see if they can validate what we're saying, are anti-addictive. Our medicines are recognized by the federal government as sacramental and theogenic compounds. Sacramental, connected to the sacred and religious and spiritual practices, and theogenic, God manifesting. Anti-addictive, so they're medical. Sacramental, and they're still on Schedule 1. Well, Colorado said no longer, right? And as you pointed out, and this is the beauty and difficulty connected to this. The beauty is there is an added layer of safety at the state level in Colorado for adults, right? Who want to commune with these teachers provided to all of us by Mother Earth. But you have to have the means to get here. So a big subset of society, adults, won't be able to afford to fly out, won't be able to afford to network into the right people, won't be able to afford to pay to sit in a facilitation center and have somebody guide them while they're in an altered state. Good news is there's ecosystem access in Colorado.
Mm-hmm.
Super grateful for that. Where I'm going with this is we need to unite, like you confirmed, and demand access in every single state. And we now have a blueprint for this. Mm-hmm. The state can decriminalize. It's symbolic, but it's hugely powerful, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the state can say, we will allow our adults sovereignty over themselves in the relationship with this living planet,
Mm-hmm.
and give them the ability to sit with these compounds. Remember, anti-addictive, known as medicine, confirmed by the feds as sacred for only certain groups. What's going on with that? I want to just plug this in one more time. Thank you, Colorado. Thank you, Colorado, for creating state-level safety for people like me. And how does this connect to my religious accommodation? Let me go there.
Yeah, please.
Right? See, I think we're in a soul crisis. We're in a spirit crisis, in a connection and community and a reverent perspective of the living planet crisis. And after I had a mystical experience on MDMA, I couldn't stop thinking about what's going on with the other compounds on Schedule 1. Psilocybin, that's the flesh of God. Magic mushrooms. Why is it called the flesh of God? Why is it on Schedule 1? Right? Iboga. That's a West African hallucinogenic shrub, considered sacred and sacramental by the indigenous people of that region. That substance, by the way, helps people kick addiction.
Mm-hmm.
It gives them a multi-month reprieve from the pull, the addictive pull to an opioid. We're in a crisis. Leaving the barriers up is an injustice. Cannabis, another plant we talked about.
Mm-hmm.
Pharma given access to make patentable medications. Some states still criminalizing and arresting hundreds of thousands of people a year for nonviolent cannabis-related offenses. What's that about?
Yeah.
Is that industry influence? Is that hijacking the purity of police? The mission of police is to protect and serve the civilians of this country under the Constitution, which is the right to life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, and religious practice. You can't get any more simple than that. If industry helps craft the laws, I'm just going back to one of our beginning comments, this is where violence gets into the law code.
Mm-hmm.
Because industry begins to worry about profit, and the profit motive taints the purity of the mission of the Guardian.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So, these plants recognized as sacraments by the federal government, and I'm a religious man. I identify as a religious person. Well, I said, I want access to these teachers.
Mm-hmm.
I want to sit with them and learn from them, and I want to commune with the living planet, Mother Earth, so that I can have access to my God. So I spoke up. And here's the mystery at play. one person led to another person, led to another person. And I find this attorney, Terran Hale, who is a religious man. And he listened to me and he said, I'll help you. I'll help you from the beginning to end, and then whatever happens afterwards. You want to ask your chief for a religious accommodation? Let's professionally ask. And we put together a binder, 2-page ask letter, 3 ebooks on the topic connected to another attorney. And then I was invited in to an entheogenic church in Texas, founded by Justin Lepre, Illuminating Heroes. They accepted me. I put that into my ask. I said, here's what I'm going to do. I need you to know. And I'm looking for a religious accommodation at my place of work in Massachusetts. And I handed it to my chief, who happens to be an attorney. What's up with that? And his response to me is, I'm going to take this seriously because it's a constitutional issue.
Yeah.
I said, thank you. This is really important. I said, if I get a yes, that's what I'm looking for. If I get a no, I am not going to be able to back off of this.
Yeah.
I am not looking to harm anybody. I am just looking to be allowed to be who I truly am and practice my belief system, my religion, the way I see fit. It seems to me that the more people who could open up to the whole experience of life and allow themselves to fully embrace every part of themselves would be a better place to get to, right?
Yes.
And I was gifted opportunity to be able to do that. And I'm very grateful. I'm very grateful.
Yeah. And, you and I have been fortunate enough to support some retreats where people are going through their own processes here in Colorado from both the veteran as well as the first responder lineages. And what I continue to see from that is, the words joy and bliss, where people are saying, I'm finally able to sleep without the nightmares.
That's right.
I'm finally able to reconnect, especially with that childlike wonder that usually then re-inspires them to have a second, vantage on life and almost coming back and saying, all right, now I have this other heartbeat. How can I actually then share this?
Nice.
And that's what I love is when I see that inclination of this has been so meaningful for me, not getting too heavy of, well, why me? Because I know that was even something that when I first met you a year ago, almost to this week, was you're like, why was I the one to ask and have that fortitude and that allowance. And I think that's what I really hope people take from today's conversation is, what is one step that I can take today to either support my own life or, these types of conversations coming into our community, because it isn't in isolation. We do need to link arms. And the more that we find the right people, just like you're doing in your line of work, where you are already having other officers and people in the system saying, hey, thank you for doing what you're doing. Yeah. And that in and of itself is planting the seeds, but not needing to know where they're exactly going to go. We know, though, what the bigger thing is that we're trying to achieve. And I'm just very grateful to know you and to experience you and to learn from you. Is there any final share, I'd say, around that joy and bliss side, just because we've gotten heavy in the I think kind of the process and all the things that are going on with the system, but what has joy and bliss brought for you, this connection?
I want to say something I believe is connected to joy and bliss. I found my joy and bliss when I fully embraced and became consciously involved in extending assistance to my community members and to the first responders. I think if we put humans first, if we put their needs first, then we are on strong moral grounds.
Mm-hmm.
And that becomes extremely difficult to stop. So if we know that a deep relationship with Mother Earth and other living beings that are here by the purview of her love, first, we won't make a mistake. My community members, they come first. My first responders, they come first. We know certain practices and certain compounds can help them stay well.
Mm-hmm.
So if there's violence and injustice in only allowing them access when they're completely broken is built into the system, we acknowledge, confront, and change that together. That's my bliss.
And I love that because, that really does show that the sacredness is in every day. It's in how you show up every day. It's not just going to these peak experiences, these retreats that you and I have the opportunity to be supportive with. It's how do I show up in each moment? And that really does bring us back to presence. And that does bring us back to what is the outcome I desire, not what's right or wrong. And that has me inspired and also humbled, just because it is the warrior in you that I also am feeling like empowered and emboldened by, because we do need to have people share in that fierceness, because otherwise we just go back to the same story.
We eat what we're fed.
Yeah.
No, I'll take the spoon and I'll feed myself. Nicely said.
Yeah.
Michael, before I want to get this in with this conversation with you. I really, really am inviting in chiefs to this discussion, to think about the fact that we've been lied to.
Mm-hmm.
We've been lied to by our own government, and it has harmed us, the first responders, the agents of the government. It has harmed us. It has harmed our civilians, and it has harmed us, the first responders. And we need chiefs, people at those higher levels, to have these conversations and to ask why, and to say, I will no longer protect industry. I will protect my men and women. That is fundamentally American.
Thank you, Sarko.
Thanks, Michael.
Well, until next time, I invite everybody to move a little slower, listen a little deeper, and continue to find your Zen in each day. Thank you for being here today. If our conversation opened something new for you, a little presence, a little wonder, share it with someone who might need it. Until next time, move a little slower, listen a little deeper, and keep finding the Zen in your own life.